What's up, guys, and welcome back to another vlog. What's about to be an amazing vlog. Playing every single time.
We just wanted to take a quick second, guys, to explain a little something. So what you guys see in the videos is really like only a portion of what goes on here in the THROTL HQ. We have been working around the clock preparing for this new THROTL merch drop that's happening on Friday. And this guy right here has put in a lot of work to make this happen.
I mean, we are putting in blood, sweat, and tears. We want you guys to be proud to wear these letters. If you go back a year ago, we were in TJ's closet, and if you've seen those videos, we've come a long way, and we want each drop from now on to reflect the steps that we're taking, and your guys' support has brought us here.
Yeah,
straight up.
Definitely. You guys see Evan and Mickey a lot on the vlogs, and what you don't see is the minute the camera goes off, those guys are in the office working, helping prepare all these merchandise drops, helping with the parts business. I mean, this is really an around-the-clock business. So guys, we really appreciate the support up to now. The drop is coming on Friday. If you pick something up, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, every DM, every email, every comment, every like, I don't think you guys completely understand how much it means to us. You know,
yeah.
we look at that stuff every day. So check our stuff out. It's Friday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go take a look, and now back to the RX-8, baby.
All right, guys, welcome back to the vlog. Today we've got some RX content for you. Not RX-7, but RX-8. So let's go out in the shop and see what's going on. We've got a special guest with us here today. Our boy Chris from Fly Rides is here. He does a lot of lighting and lighting accessories. And he is going to be taking our RX-8 headlights and upgrading a lot of the lighting on this car. Basically, every light on this car is going to be upgraded. He's going to take our headlights today and pull those apart and do something special with them for us, which we're really excited about. These headlights have seen better days, so they definitely need some work. He's got his work cut out for him. So we're gonna actually let Chris get out of here. He's actually been here for about an hour or so already, or actually longer probably. But we've got something special for you today. We're gonna be cutting the RX-8 and fitting our wide body kit. So once Chris is done with his stuff here on the lighting, we're gonna go ahead and get started on that. Stay tuned.
So we're gonna change a couple little things on here, including we put an F1 brake flasher on. So basically when you step on the brakes, now these and that third brake light will do a certain flash based on how we've programmed it to be. But that one's not gonna work because TJ stole the little socket thing and I have nowhere to put this now, so it's all good. But I'll show you what it looks like real quick. All right, so whenever you step on the brakes, they're gonna flash a certain amount of times. And you can actually program how many times they flash, how fast they flash, sorts of little things like that. Even a different little style of a mode, how if they come on really fast all at once, or if they kind of just do different animations. I don't know, there's so many different things you can do with the kit that whoever owns this car eventually can just play with it until they have it set exactly the way that they like it. Other things like that are just little reverse bulbs. We're gonna change everything out on the headlights, and so they're sitting over here on this bench. We're gonna have to open them up and do all kinds of modifications inside, so I'm sure you guys will see how that turns out.
What are you doing, Mick? Just getting ready to start cutting this car up. Supplying some blue painter's tape so that we can test fit the over fenders without scratching up the car too bad, even though a lot of this is gonna get repainted anyway. Just good measure.
All right, so what Mickey and I are doing now is just applying the tape to any section that's going to be touching the body panels for a couple reasons. One is because we want to position the fender, the over fenders on here, and although this car is getting repainted, we don't want to really scratch or you know, put any deep scratches in. It's just going to make our job tougher down the line. So The other thing why we want to put blue painter's tape is so that we can use markers and draw on the paint for the positioning of the new hardware. So actually I wanted to show you the hardware we're going to be using on this project. So these are actually from Downstar. So Frank, thank you for sending these out to us. We actually use these on most of TJ and Calvin's projects. I personally have never used them. I've just seen them used, but it's a pretty simple system. So when we get to drilling the holes, we'll actually show you guys how to install these. But if you're gonna do over fenders or a wide body kit, this probably is the easiest way to do it.
Okay, so as you guys can see, tape is on the fender. We've fitted the fender. The fitment seems to be really nice on these. So we're able to actually wedge it into place. When they come out of the mold and they're shipped and they sit for a long time, a lot of times the fiberglass part will flatten out due to just longevity of sitting flat or the heat, whatever. These ones have actually flattened a little bit. So what's happening is when Evan and I push this on and we tuck the flanges into the wheel well, which is a really nice feature on these, a lot of kits don't have those flanges, it actually creates this bow in the panel. And then it bows away from the car, which is making us have to kind of push it back. That's okay, and we're gonna have Cleco fasteners that'll temporarily hold that on the car and keep it against the car. But once now that we have our line, this is the outer portion of the fender flare where it's actually gonna sit on the car. What we wanna do is look at the wheel arch and find out how much material we need to remove. Now, I've done quite a few of these kits of different varieties, and I know that basically you have to remove the center section directly above the wheel, and then we're gonna go back a little bit just so that we have extra clearance, because we are gonna go with a more aggressive size wheel and tire on this car. So I wanna make sure that we don't have to go back and do this twice. So there is a fine line. You can remove too much material, and I've seen that done, and you can remove too little amount of material. So we're gonna try to fall in the middle of that and not overdo it or underdo it. It's almost time to cut. So this is a bit of a guessing process. The more of these you do, the better you get at this, but every car is different because they have different where the inner fender meets the outer fender, and there's the pinch fold at the wheel arch. They all differ. So you don't just want to scribe your line and go cut right away. You want to mark your line and then kind of get a gauge of how much material you have inside the wheel well as well. Because you have to remember, you can cut this, but at the end of the day, you still have to weld it closed back when you're done so that you have a sealed panel. And you can't forget that these pinch welds are actually a structural part of the car. So if you don't weld it, one, you're opening the inside of your car to the outside elements. Two, you're losing some structural rigidity by not re-welding it back together. So we want to make sure that when we do cut, we don't cut away a bunch of stuff that we need. Otherwise we have to go back and put a bunch of metal back in. If we do it smart, we can reuse the metal inside the wheel well, fold it up, re-weld it, seam seal it, and be done with it. And it looks great. So that's our goal. We're really taking our time here. I want to make sure we do this right. Okay, everything's inspected. We're gonna go ahead and start cutting. But one thing I didn't mention was that almost across the board, whenever you do one of these, almost every car, the rear bumper actually has a mount just inside where the fender and the rear bumper meet. Where you would normally have like a 10mm bolt or some sort of fastener in the flange. Well, when you cut these out, you pretty much lose that area where the provision is to mount. So a lot of times the body kit where it mounts will actually become a new fastener for that. Otherwise, if not, you have to create your own flange in here. So keep that in mind when you're cutting out material, that you leave some material inside for that mounting provision. Gotta protect.
Do you want an ear?
Gotta protect your ear. Hey, is this a good look?
Number one. Number two. Oh wait, we don't want a wide body anymore.
Rip. Okay, now that the outer is removed, we're left with our inner wheel well tub. This is a good thing. It looks ugly, but we're going to utilize the material from this inner wheel tub to actually create, well, they basically reuse the wheel tub. So I'm going to cut out the portion that we no longer need, which was the outermost portion that was tucked against the inside of our outside fender. And what we're going to do is we'll pie cut this later, something like this, and create a bunch of basically rectangles, and we'll fold those up. And then we'll go back with the welder and we'll tack weld that all together. And then once that's tack welded, we'll go ahead and finish weld all of it, and then we can cut off those fingers flush, and then we'll go back with seam sealer and seam seal it. Then we have a structural and a completely enclosed area from the elements. So that'll be the way to go. I'm sure you guys are already aware we're bagging this car. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the coilovers out, we're gonna stick a wheel back on each hub, and then we're gonna lower the car down on a jack. And we're gonna jack the wheel up to its highest point where basically the suspension binds or it hits something at the top. And what that's gonna allow us to figure out is if we've cut enough material to move forward. That way we know that the car can go all the way down without hitting the tire. And that's really the only good way to do it that I'm aware of. So we're gonna go ahead and just knock that out real quick. That way we don't do this twice. Okay, now we've got the fingers cut. So we're gonna go ahead and fold all this up and get it close to where we can tack weld it when we're ready to do that. Okay, so when you're cutting the finger cuts, it's always kind of like a trial on how far back you have to go with it. Some of these need to go a little further because if you don't go back far enough, you're basically creating a ledge that sticks down by trying to stretch the material. That it causes that like a ridge basically. You can go back and just use like a little 3-pound sledge and just sort of massage it and flatten it out once you're done. I like to just make the cuts just a little bit longer because you can always weld those up. It's a lot easier than just beating on the car with a hammer. So another little tip would be to, before you tuck these all the way up against the outer, to use your sanding bit or sanding disc and actually clean up this metal first, because we are going to be welding it. It's a lot easier to do it now, to take all the anti-corrosion materials off of the metal now and then fold it up. That way when you go back to weld, it's already clean surfaces. That also goes for the outer surface as well.
So one thing I definitely want to make sure you guys understand, we are not leaving it like this, and you probably see a lot of people just leave it like this. But as Mickey mentioned, like the whole body of the car is a structural point. So it's very important that when we take these, I call them leaves, I don't know what you call them. You press this up against the body, and then we're gonna be welding this seam together, and same with the seam in between here. So when we're done with this, you probably, unless you really knew what you're looking for, you wouldn't really be able to tell after it's all undercoated and everything. So just please, if you're gonna wide body something, take the proper steps and do it right, because it's gonna bite you back in the ass down the road. So, okay. So I'm gonna remove this shock here, front. You good with that?
I needed to get that.
It's so tall up in there. I can see it. The finish line. Hey, finally. That was the worst. This is a very unique coilover setup. Power tricks. Now I have to do this all over again.
All right, so we've test fitted the front fender. The fitment on the front is really good. It actually wraps down onto the front bumper and actually underneath the stock lip, or underneath the lip. What I've done is I've made a new mounting attachment here, because like in the back, when you cut out this area, you almost always cut out your attachment point for the front bumper. What I've done is I've used an existing hole and created a new mount that's on the side here. This mount will allow the bumper to stay in its position and not be interfering with the wheel. Then what I've done is I've created a radius that's going to allow for our wheel to sit up much higher under the wheel arch without making contact with any of our our wheel well housing bits. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out now. I've done my best to kind of eyeball as good of a radius as possible. And at the end of the day, it gets covered up, but for me, it's important that it looks aesthetic because, I don't know, because I know it's under there and I want it to look good. So we will make a good cut. I would say that if this is your first time ever doing this type of job, don't focus so much on the cut being perfectly smooth and everything, because you can always put a flapper sanding disc on here after you're done cutting and go back and actually sand and shave and make it nice and clean when you're done. And that's how you get good at it. Remember, it's not how good you are, it's how good you fix your mistakes. All right, so this is an 80 grit, they call it a flapper disc, but basically it's a bunch of sandpaper overlaid on a fiberglass disc. And basically what you do with this is, I use this to clean up my cuts. One, to knock off any of the burrs and edges that it leaves when you use the cutting disc, but also to shape, because it's very coarse, it's 80 grit, and you can get even coarser ones. I like the 80s personally. So as you can see, the cut I made is actually really nice, but you can see it wavers a little bit as you're cutting. So what you can do is go back and get rid of all these little shreds of metal that are left behind, and go in and actually clean up that line and actually make it nice and smooth, a nice radius. Definitely not necessary, but definitely something I like to do just to finish it up. Of my cut compared to the tire.
Look at this. This is the glorious moment here. So it's not hitting anywhere. That lip's gonna be on the ground. That's what we want.
Oh, not that bad. But I'm shocked at how close I got this to the actual radius of the tire. That's a full guess. Like no wheel on at all. All right, well, everybody went home. It's been a long day. I couldn't leave the shop without putting drilling the rest of the holes and putting the rest of the Cleco fasteners in. So as you guys can see, we now have the fenders fully on with the temporary fasteners, these Cleco fasteners, which is going to allow us to take the fenders off and on for fitment purposes. We're now ready to weld on the passenger side, trim, and finish all the cutting that we did with seam sealer and paint. And we can now start measuring for wheels. And we can now send these shocks off to get bags put on them for the UAS setup and AccuAir setup that this car is gonna have. This is an exciting step for this car. Tomorrow I'm gonna get on to finishing up the driver's side as well, and then we can start welding and completing the car. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm your boy Mickey. I'll be back here right tomorrow to get this thing done for you guys and show you guys what it's gonna look like with all the fenders on. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. Thanks for all the great comments and all the likes. We love you guys. Peace out, Throttle fam.